Kilo 2, clear takeoff, left hand. Takeoff left, it is speed 1. Left land, swim west, copy. Speed 1. Crossing 2-1. Crossing at 2-4 is runway.
Hello and welcome to the Blueskies Podcast. I'm PR Ganapathy, your host.
Just 70, Roger, report IP southeast, connection, speed 4, midway, and field selected.
It's my great pleasure today to finally interview after a long time Wing Commander Namrita Chandi. Wing Commander Chandi was commissioned into the helicopter stream of the Indian Air Force in June of 1996 in the Short Service Commission Women Flying Pilot course. And she retired in 2011 after 15 years of service. Flew helicopters all over the country. And today we're going to have a fascinating conversation with her, learn about her experiences in the Air Force. But first things first, welcome to the program, ma'am, and thank you so much for speaking to the audience of the Blue Skies.
Thank you so much, Ganpati, and I'm so sorry for the delay that you mentioned. It happened. So it's indeed a pleasure for me to be here with you on this podcast.
Likewise, likewise. No, the fault's not yours, it's completely mine. But, we love to first get to know our guests a little better. So just love to hear where you grew up. What was your motivation to join the service? Did you have a family member? And I know you were among the first women to be commissioned into the flying branch. So just love to hear what that journey was like, what triggered the whole thing. And I want to tell the audience here that it's not just you, but also your sister. Both of you joined in the same batch. So it's quite a fascinating story. Love to hear about it.
Yes, Ganpati, and when I talk about those days, it's like I have to count the number of decades now because it's been so long, right? So I basically come from a very humble background. My parents were farmers, and as a child, I just remember them struggling for to provide us the best amenities, the best education, food, and stuff. And we really valued that growing up because we knew how hard they were working for make it matter to us, right? So that realization came much earlier in life, and we started to value the things that we nothing was taken for granted. Number one was that, and that probably made us more channelized towards what is it that we want to do with our lives. And while growing up, they put us in a good school, which was the campus school, and our peers, they had a lot of positive influence on us. We were lucky to have some great so to say mentors as a teachers there who could guide us through. um, so all that put together, and while we were growing up, we also had one of our cousins, and he was a fighter pilot, and he was inducted in the first batch of the MiG-29 when they came to India. So he was a real role model, and we would really look up to him. And he would come back and narrate stories of how it is flying in uniform with the Indian Air Force, and we would really kind of be in awe of him all the time. Seeing him in uniform and doing things that he was doing, and the stories that he would tell us. So we three, I have three siblings, three of us. We had two sisters and one brother. We were very close to him, and unfortunately we lost him in an accident. And but
Oh, oh,
his
oh.
influence continued to stay with us for very long. But that point in time, Ganpati, joining forces was out of question. It was something just unseen and unheard of for especially girls and women. So that possibility did not exist. But there was this fire within us while growing up to do something different, to do something which is more challenging, and kept that was we kept that alive. And then I joined college, and I joined my university, and I was doing my masters in computer applications. I was the first batch who was doing that in Punjab University, Chandigarh. And I was almost through it. I mean, 3 years course, and I'd finished 2.5 years, and very close to finishing my post graduation degree. And like, it was said that computers, they have a huge scope in the future, and we were the first batch. And rightly so. When I look back, a lot of my classmates and my colleagues, they are now placed very well all over the world. Globally, they are placed very well. So, but when that point in time, Air Force opened their door for women to join as aviators, and I just happened to come across it through an ad I saw in the newspaper that day. When I saw that ad, it felt that was my calling. It came so naturally to me, and I it did not even bother about the risk that was involved in taking this decision, the risk of giving up my high profile, so to say, almost close to getting a placement in a good company and giving that up and joining the forces. And also, I did not know what it was in store for me, because the risks that were involved, even in joining, and what if I fail and all that stuff. Because my why was so clear what I wanted in life. And that just came naturally to me. And that point in time, I took the decision of joining the Indian Air Force. And I applied for it, went through all the what are the process of selection.
What is the selection process like? So I'm
Yeah,
presuming you don't write the CDS or any of those written
yeah,
exams,
it
is it?
used to be a 5 day, the normal SSB that was there.
Yeah, Air Force Selection
Yes,
Board.
Air
Okay.
Force Selection Board, and followed by the medicals that are the routine medicals that happen.
Okay.
So this was the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did your family react, given that you had a cousin who had an accident and passed away in the service, and you and your sister were both keen to become pilots in the Air Force?
Yeah, so my family has been very supportive. My father's been very proud of our decisions that we've taken. My mom, being a mom, I mean, she had her own fears and she had her own apprehensions, and I think she was in a lot of fear when all that was happening. But she never came forth with that, knowing that it would kind of discourage us from going ahead and achieving our dream life. Um, so she never, though I could see it in her eyes every time we would say bye and leave for her kind of initial training and then for her jobs. And she would keep, coming up with these little kind of these suggestions that, raat ko dhyan se chalana types, that kind of thing. And but she would never come out with her fears openly, and we knew she had her fears and she lived with them for very long. But that was kind of okay with us. And so overall, my family has been very supportive. My dad's been a pillar of a strength, and he's always encouraged us to go ahead and follow our dreams and do whatever it takes to be there. Yes.
Wonderful. So, in your sister took part in the same selection board? Was she in a different selection board?
No, it was the same. And you know what happened, Ganpati? Those days, there were no phones, right? We literally had to book a call to get through someone, and it would take a couple of days for that call to go through. So the only way of communication was letters. So when I decided to go and write, go through this and apply for this, I wrote a letter to my sister. And she was at some other place. She was doing her graduation, and she also came through this ad. She saw that ad. She independently applied for it. We never consulted each other. And when my letter went to her, by the time I realized, she had already got a call to go for the SSB. And
Wow.
and we went to the same SSB. She was chest number 5, and I was chest number 23, 2 plus 3, 5, right?
Right.
So, so she went first. She got through her SSB, and then she went for her medical. So when she went for her medicals, I went for my SSB, and then I got through my medicals after her, and we just happened to join as course mates. So that was something unplanned, not even discussed at that point in time, but it just happened.
Right. Great. And so, where were you called up for training, and what was that like? Is it like direct entry cadets in the Air Force?
Yeah, so we went for a training to AFA, which is Air Force Academy, Dundigal, near Hyderabad.
And there were just 6 or 7 of you in the course, isn't it?
Yes,
It's
we
quite a
were six
small
of
course.
us, yes, but we had a parallel course running with us, which was 157 PC. So there were a lot of them there with us as well. The course was different, but everything else was same. The flying training, the kind of the ground training, the ground classes. We all had that together.
Hmm. So you did 6 months of, marching and Air Force Law and firing a rifle and things like that?
Yes, yes, yes. 6 months were like a lot of physical training. It was uh, it was like everything you're supposed to do as an air warrior, right? And it includes
Hmm.
your
Yeah.
camps, your field camps. It includes your marching, your PT, your going for those 5 kilometer runs every single day that we've done. And I remember when we joined, we were not even used to walking, forget running, right? And then the first day started with that 5 kilometer run early morning, waking up at 4 o'clock, and we were not used to any of this stuff. And then first few weeks we were just limping. We just couldn't even walk straight. That was the state. But then we couldn't complain to anyone. We just had to go through it. It was such a so it was a phase which taught you a lot of lessons, and I think it taught us that how being mentally strong is what solves or everything else for you, right?
Right,
Um,
right, right.
and we were just in the moment, that point in time. We There was no one to guide us, to tell us what to expect, because we came from a civil background totally, right? And we were not briefed earlier by anyone. We just took it how it came our way, right? We did not go with any judgments. We did not go with any expectations, and I think that did help a lot.
Super. And so after 6 months, you started flying training. And what sort of aircraft did you start
Yeah,
in?
so after 6 months got over, we first flew the HPT 32. We did a 30 hours on that.
Okay.
And after 6 months got over, then we went to Hakimpet where our helicopter training started. So that went for another
Hmm.
year.
Okay.
Yes.
And so HPT 32, you soloed on that. You did some cross countries, a little bit of
Yes.
night flying,
Yes,
maybe.
absolutely. It was a normal syllabus that others were following 30 hours. Everybody was doing 30 hours that point in time on HPT 32. And then option two was someone would go on to Kiran aircraft, the ones who were going for fighters or transports. And the one going for helicopters would go to Hakimpet and fly the
Go
new
to
target
HTS.
bombers like HTS. Yeah, that's how it was.
Right, right. What was your experience like flying an aircraft or going solo the first time?
Oh my God, yes. But that was quite a thing. But flying itself, the first, what they call the air experience sortie itself was, that is so clear and vividly. I remember that. Because, I used to have fear of heights, and I used to be road sick, both the things together. And I was like, I'm getting into this territory. I know they're going to work against me, but what is it that I'm going to do? So while the training started, I never got time to think about it. And then came the part when the flying training had to start. And before that had to start, we were taking on an air experience sortie with the instructor. So we were told to take puke bags, right? And I had sneaked one into my overall pocket because we were told that it may happen, you begin to puke. And before that, I had just once sat in an aircraft. I had never even sat in an aircraft much. So this was the time I got to be sitting in the cockpit and flying the aircraft. And and I was scared. I was literally scared because I wouldn't know how would my body react to it, and how would I take it, what would happen after the sortie got over. Would I be told to pack my bags and go because I can't just do it? So I didn't know, and I just in the first sortie, you know a little bit about the checks, you know about not everything in the air, but they make you a little go through the checklist on the ground, what all checks need to be done, how do you start an aircraft. So my instructor told me all that, and then I went on this air experience sortie, and I was like flying and watching the earth from that angle, from the cockpit. Oh my God, that that is breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking, mesmerizing. And after that, what happened, I didn't even come to know, because then your instructor is trying to explain, and he makes you he has to show off also, right? What the aircraft does, and he was doing those spirals and all those aerobatics and everything that he could do, and I came back without puking.
Wow.
And that point in time, I realized when your mental energies are all focused on something, right? There are no distractions, and these are all distractions that were holding me back initially. So that was a huge lesson I learned on my first air experience sortie. And then came a stage when I had to do my solo. And yes, flying the aircraft solo was an absolutely different experience altogether. It was like you being in the cockpit. Oh my God. It was like you controlling, and there's no one else sitting next to you. It was such a different, beautiful experience. So yeah.
Right, right. Wonderful. Now, with just 30 hours of experience, you come to fly helicopter, which is a completely different beast, unstable naturally. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was different because 30 hours was an fixed wing aircraft which was easy to handle once you learn how to do it. Yes, now you come to a platform which is so unstable that it's difficult. The hovering itself, because before I came, I just heard some murmurs. Oh my God, the most difficult thing to do in an aircraft is to make it hover, and that's the first thing they teach you, right? Before you start to fly helicopters.
What were
So
you flying? The cheetah or the chetak?
no, we were flying the Chetaks. As a
Chetak, okay.
trainer aircraft, we were flying the Chetaks, yes. So, yes, it took us a while to get used to this platform, to understand how the aerodynamics work on this kind of a machine, and how to not give extra inputs, how to just give minimum inputs and make the aircraft do what you want the aircraft to do. So it was it was different learning altogether. It was challenging initially for us, but I think we were very lucky to get the good instructors who could make us do and learn flying the choppers. So yeah.
And so, how many hours do you do there? What does the syllabus include? Does it include some cross
Um,
country navigation, night
yes, it
flying,
includes
things like that?
everything, everything, everything. See, you're there for 1 year, right? And initial few months they just teach you the basics, and then they start teaching you the navigation, then they start teaching you the night flying, then they start teaching you the cross country, then they start teaching you the search and rescue patterns. Basically they just prepare you for the basic the missions that you would be doing uh, once you reach the units, because every unit had a different role to play, and that specific role is taught in that unit. But before you get posted there, they teach you all the basics and prepare you so that you're not kind of found wanted in those basic learning of flying the helicopters and what all it can do in the various missions. So you're taught a little bit of everything. And once you get posted to a squadron or a unit, then you specialize in the particular role that squadron or unit is doing.
Understood. Now, one thing that's different from fixed wing to helicopters is that y'all routinely land off airport, at a field location and things like that. Was that taught to you while you were in the helicopter training school, or is that something you learned later? And how do they teach you that? What is the exercises like?
So you have one is initially they make you land or on the helipads which are on the strip, right, on the taxiways, and then they have unprepared helipads which are next to it. So rough ground landing, that's what they call, and they make you prepare for that. You land on upslopes and downslopes and rough uneven grounds. So that's also a part of the training which you are taught. So there are a couple of sorties you need to do, and then you got to clear that check. So every syllabus they teach you, they have a test and a check sortie, and you need to clear that, and then you move to the next level. So it's done very methodically, very well thought of and planned, and it works very well.
Right, right.
Uh,
Excellent. So you graduate with your wings at the end of that 1 year,
1.5 years.
1.5 years.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
6 months of ground training and then 1 year of flying training,
yeah.
and that's when you're commissioned.
Yes,
Okay,
that's right. That's right.
got it. So where were you posted after that? And between Chetaks, Cheetahs, I think at that time the policy was that the women would not fly multi-engine, right? So you were not going to Me 17, Me 8.
Yeah, that's right. It happened much, much later, because we were just like the first ones, and they also didn't know how would we perform, what would be the results. It's like an experiment that Air Force was doing, right? And I got posted to my first squadron, which was in Jaisalmer. It was 133 FSC flight. It was in Jaisalmer, and that itself has a story how I got posted there because I never wanted to go in deserts, right? So my thought was should get posted to a city, which is kind of at least will have those movie halls and things like that, so that and and before our postings were to be decided, our instructors asked us to. A flight commander, in fact, called us all and he said, just write on a piece of paper the place you don't want to get posted to. So I wrote in bolds and big letters. I wrote Jaisalmer because that was one place I never wanted to. I thought deserts were horrible, right? They're so dry. There's no life. It's difficult. It's so hot. No rains and everything that I didn't like. So basically, I asked for I wrote Jaisalmer on that slip. And my sister, she never wanted to go to Bhuj because she said, "Oh, Bhuj is not a good place again. Gujarat, I don't want to go there." So she wrote Bhuj. And when her postings came, I got posted to Jaisalmer and she got posted to Bhuj. So that's what happened.
Wow.
Having gone there, I realized it was one of the best postings I could have had.
Visual to for Just 70, Roger, report time southeast, Greenwich, for midway, and field selected.
So just describe the setup. How many officers, how many aircraft, and what were your duties like what is the unit's duties like?
Yeah, so um, we were like, I was the first lady pilot to go and get posted to that squadron. And that squadron had 23 other officers. And out of those officers, there were 20 bachelors, right? And like one was a CEO, flight commander, and another guy who was married.
Okay.
So now I was the only lady pilot to get posted there, and initially they all had apprehensions, like it's like desert flying is not easy, and the aircraft never had air conditioner or anything, and the role of the unit was to do border recce's,
Okay.
and we would fly very close to the borders. We would fly low and slow, and if the temperatures were like in summers were like outside 40 degrees, inside the cockpit used to be plus 10 degrees, right? Naturally.
Because like a greenhouse effect of the perspex, huh?
Yes,
Mm.
absolutely. And we were supposed to fly slow also so that we're not caught by the radar on the other side. So we would not fly more than 60 knots per hour. That was the higher speed. So, and these sorties would be like 2.5 hours till the endurance of the aircraft. That is how long one sortie would be. And we would do that 2 or 3 sorties a week. So that was the main goal of the squadron.
And who were you flying? Were you taking army people to
No,
do
no,
this
no, no.
recce? Or?
Yeah, at times yes, we would take the army people, we would take the surveillance people with us. But at times we would just go and see the condition of the fencing and give reports ourselves also.
Okay.
So, but sometimes the army guys would come and want to go and do their job, so whatever they were doing that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the role there, and
So I
what I,
presume you started off as a co-pilot, which in a helicopter's on the left seat, and how long
yes,
before you
yes, yes.
moved over to the right seat as a captain?
I think it just you got to again go and do the syllabus there, the border recce syllabus, and it took me about I think 2 months or something to then go as and fly as a captain from the other
Okay,
seat.
very nice. Okay.
And but otherwise, local flying I was doing as captain. I was doing night flying as captain within that airbase. What we were supposed to fly. So then you're supposed to get your so you appear with AEB and get your category, all that stuff happens.
Categories, right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Mm.
And then you are free to fly as the captain.
Okay. And were you getting a lot of flying?
Yeah, we were getting a lot of flying initially. That unit had a great role. Like I said, every week we were flying 2 or 3 sorties just border recce, which is about say 2 to 2.5 hours is like 6 hours, and then we would do detachments at Jodhpur. We were doing detachments at Uttarlai. So yeah, so we would do SAR there, right? And then so one aircraft, two aircraft were perpetually outstation basis. So there SAR we would do bird recce's, we would do stuff like there were a lot of Neel guys there chasing Neel guys out, and also any other the crew needed a recce or the AOC needed a recce or anybody. So we were doing all that. Plus logistics was also there, transportation was there, all that involved. The unit was substantially flying, and we would log about every month is about 30 40 hours. That is what we were logging on an average, which is great. Yeah.
Great. Any memorable sorties from that time you want to tell the audience about?
Yes, memorable was one when we kind of unofficially, is now I can talk about it. We just crossed the other side, right? Because what happens is those days there's just fencing. There used to be there, and that fencing during summers when you had those sandstorm would get covered. So the only landmark that they used to demarcate, now see technology has gone much ahead. So those physical fencing was the only demarcation, and that was covered. We couldn't trace that, and my CEO was with me, and then we saw some tents, and we looked at the uniform, which was different in color, and we realized what had happened, and we then 180-degree turn and ran from there. I
Wow.
never talked
Yes,
about it
this was
today.
long before GPS or anything of that
We
sort,
never had
right? So,
GPS on board. We used to do literally map reading, and flying over the desert when there are no landmarks. We would actually literally fly by the shape of the sand dunes. That was how we would fly. That was the only landmark, the shape of the sand dunes. Imagine doing that. And now no one can even think of doing it. People don't even want to travel by road without GPS these days, right? So I think that is what made us true pilots, flying with minimum external aids and minimum equipment, navigation equipment at least. So, yeah.
what was the Chetak like to fly? What was your
Yeah,
experience
so
like?
it's a great aircraft. It's still flying, and we just happened to have our 75th HTS anniversary this year, and I saw the tail numbers are just the same that they were the ones we were flying, right? So they're doing great. They're flying great, especially as trainer aircraft, and slowly they will get phased out for sure. But I think that they've served the Indian Air Force very very well.
Mm. How long did you spend in Jaisalmer?
Jaisalmer was short. It was like 1.5 years because that unit got disbanded, and thereafter we were attached with Jodhpur for some time before we got posted to our next unit.
Okay, where was
So
that?
yeah. So the next one was Sarsawa
Okay,
near Saharanpur. That was my
yes,
second unit.
Saharanpur.
Yeah.
Okay. What was that unit and what was that unit's duties?
I think that unit had again SAR. We were doing search and rescue, and we were doing SAR roles for Halwara and Bathinda.
Okay.
So again, we had two aircraft. We were outstationed throughout the year at these two places, and a lot of flying would happen ex those places that we would do. So that was again, yeah, different. And what happened, what started there was hill flying for me, which I had not done earlier because hill flying I had not done from Jaisalmer. We had just done few sorties to Mount Abu, but that's hardly any in hill flying. But true hill flying started from Sarsawa because we would fly into the Uttarakhand hills from there.
Aha, okay. Tell me what that's like. What were the sort of things that you have to do?
There we would fly for the border road organizations. We would fly for the army. We would fly and do the logistics for the army who were stationed, and the ITBP uh, services who were stationed at the border areas, right? And we would also do transportation roles. We would do rescue, CASEVAC, casualty evacuations of those soldiers from those heights, and a lot of times we would just do practice flying because to do the actual mission you had to practice. So we that was a very regular part of our training there. Just do practice flying and high altitude landings from there. Yeah.
Okay. One thing that scares me when I drive through the mountains and I look at the valleys is the electric cables that are hanging all over the place.
Yeah,
Must be quite a scary thing for you guys, right?
it is, and that's one of the big hazards, right? Because they're supposed to be marked. If you go by the book, they're supposed to have those balloons, which kind of demarcate that they do exist. And I remember much later when I was flying in the civil, I was flying in JNK, and I was flying with the then Chief Minister of JNK, and he was flying for his elections. So I was the captain, and there was a valley which didn't have wires when we flew earlier. The second time I flew, there were wires and they were not marked. and there were clouds around that, right? And we were flying a VIP on board. And looking at those wires, you can't make out from a distance, and especially in low visibility where the weather is marginal. And there were no markings. But luckily for me, much before those wires were there, I could spot something. And that was a red alert that this did not exist earlier, and we've not been notified by anyone, and we are flying into the valleys. There are high tension cables which were just across the valley at the height that we were flying. So this actually can become hazardous when, because as helicopter pilot we are always prepared to expect the unexpected that happens. So those kind of, we are always looking out for things that we may not be briefed for, we may not have seen earlier. So probably that becomes a part of your training and your natural response that happens to any stimuli which is external. And we just kind of, so that was I was like how can this, and I came, I when I landed I just reported to everyone. I said this is just not done. I mean, anyone can just go through them in case I wouldn't have spotted it much earlier, or the clouds would have been closer to the place the wires were. We were lucky that day, right? I could spot them. And so it happens, and there's so many accidents which are absolutely avoidable that happen because people have gone into wires because they just didn't see them because they were not marked or nobody briefed. So this was another mission that we would do while we were posted at Sarsawa. We would do recce's, and we would mark whatever new has come up in those valleys, and why that has come up, and then we would report that to be recorded in officially, so that all the operators know about it.
Got it. Mhm.
So yeah.
Any memorable sorties during that SAR and CASEVAC phase where you participated?
Yes, we did a couple of them, especially the soldiers who would get sick and injured. So a lot of casualty evacuations, which I did later, came during my Siachen tenure, because that was absolutely a different ball game altogether. And there I have done numerous, and every sortie was like a question of life or death, because serious issues with the soldiers who are staying at that altitude in those conditions. So a lot of times it's been that we've been able to save lives, and we've got a feedback that you just came on time. Any further delay would have led to loss of life. So that point in time, I think you feel blessed to be to be in a position of saving lives in whatever capacity you do. So yeah,
Great. How long were you in Sarsawa?
Sarsawa I was for, I got posted in 1997, end of that, and 1999. I think 2 years. 2 years. Yeah, I was in Sarsawa for 2 years.
And you went to the valley from there?
Yes, from there I got posted to Leh.
Leh. Okay. And there, I presume you're converted to the cheetah, right?
Yes, yes. No, in Sarsawa we had both Chetaks and Cheetahs.
Okay,
So
you're flying
even when
both.
we were
Okay.
trained in HTS, most of the training would happen on a Chetak helicopter, but we were also trained on Cheetah as well. So in HTS only we were trained on both the aircraft, though most of the missions we did on Chetaks. So when we came to Sasawa, they had Chetaks and Cheetahs also. So we were kind of, at times we were flying Chetaks and at times we were flying Cheetahs. So Cheetahs were not new to me because already flown that in Sarsawa. But Leh we were flying only Cheetahs.
Right, right. Great.
Yeah.
Super. So I know you had some high altitude landing experience from Sarsawa, but I'm presuming Leh and the Siachen Glacier was a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it was totally different. Very, very different. Yes. Yes.
What are some of those initial experiences like? How long does it
Uh,
take before you complete a conversion syllabus and get familiar with the area, begin to fly as a captain?
yeah, yeah, it takes anywhere between, say, 6 to 8 months. That much
Wow.
long is needed to get absolute proficiency on the aircraft, on the terrain, and the flying skills there. Because it's very different. No, you can't afford to make even smallest mistake, that because that can be fatal. That can lead to an accident. So because everything is working against you, right? It's the high altitude, it's the lack of oxygen, it is the temperatures, it is where you land, the snow, the matchbox size helipads. A lot of times you have to make landings in tailwinds because there's no other option available. There are no options of overshooting because if you do that, you end up into enemy territory. So there are a lot of constraints that come that are there, and to be proficient, I think a lot of practice is needed. So that is what takes a little time there. But I think it's all worth it. It's absolutely, absolutely worth it because the kind of flying experience that you get while flying there, the lessons that you learn of leadership and life are absolutely, I think they're like so priceless. Absolutely.
Right, I'm sure. Tell us some of the memorable sorties that you have of that time.
A lot of them, and it's like especially when we started flying into the glacier, and we started doing, we would do air maintenance for them. We would carry the basic food and the kerosene that their letters that they would look forward to the soldiers, right? And would deliver to them, and we were like their lifeline. And there were times when the weather would pack up, and for days the weather would pack up, and for days the supplies would not reach them. And be like itching to see any kind of getting any break in the weather so that we can resume our sorties. So, though they would be equipped with emergency ration, but then that would not be enough. And we would know they're running out of supplies. So, there would be pressure from all sorts coming to you to make that sortie and to have that kind of landing. And what I remember, you've done so many such missions. We've done casualty evacuations, and I remember uh, we got a call at say in the afternoon or something that there was one person who had to be evacuated from the base camp because he was brought to the base camp by some other chopper, and then we had to go and evacuate him, and the weather was packing up. So we went and we landed and we picked him up. And on the way back, there's a pass called Khardungla Pass, right? And it was totally packed. And now this guy was really serious, right? He had high altitude edema, which was getting serious, and we could feel that he's not going to stay for long if we just delayed. Now this pass was totally packed and we just couldn't pass through. And there was a little opening there from where we could have attempted, but then it's like, what do you do in this situation? It's like one life at stake, but is it worth putting everything else at stake also? So, we decided to go to Partapur. So we went and landed there, and I was like praying so hard that please get that patch cleared. Just give us one opening so that we can at least make through and save this. So we landed at Partapur, and we had not even switched off the rotors. That we got a call from the ATC that Lay is reporting that there is one patch which is cleared now. You can try. So we did not even switch off. We again engaged the rotors, and we quickly took off. And there was like, someone had heard my prayer. It was just little patch. I could see through and through. I was like, I just got to make it now, otherwise the clouds will come and cover it up any time. And probably when they reported, it was the patch was bigger, and now it was getting shortened again. And but the time I reached, I could just. It was before it closed. I just crossed over, right? And then we went and landed at the MH there. Got him deboarded, and he was admitted to the hospital. And then after 2 days, I always would make a call on such gas bags to find how the person was after 2 days, because initially, the time is, you never know what happens. Even a doctor can't tell you what happened then. So I called the doctor after 2 days, and he told me yes, he was stabilized and he was moved to Chandigarh, and he should come out of it. He will come out of it. That's what he told me. And he said a little bit of more delay would have he would have not survived. So, so it's like, at times God also helps you when you're doing such missions. And I always
Right,
believe in it. Yeah.
right. So there's this glacier captain qualification, which is really difficult to get apparently.
Yeah. It is, it is, it is. It goes through a lot of tests and scrutinies and takes a lot of time. And yeah, yeah.
So, you know, you all were a pioneer batch. The Air Force was kind of, as you had mentioned, was experimenting with you all. Um, but there were a few batches ahead of you, and of course, many who followed you. What was some of that experience of being the experiment or the guinea pigs? What was that like?
I think it came with a lot of responsibility on our shoulders that, how the future unfolds for the rest of the women to be joining the Air Force would depend on how you performed. The performance was not just individual; it had a greater, there's more repercussions that were attached to it. So we had no choice but to give our best and to do our best. And that realization was there that you're carrying the flag and you are like the flag bearers for the rest to follow, and you've got to make it work and happen and be recognized as an asset to the organization. So I always carried that with me as well, and I think that was one of the reasons which made me go and volunteer and fly in the lay as well, so that to just prove that we can do it. Others can, and we can do it as well. So yes, but then it was like also moments which where we learned and we enjoyed, and it's been great because I remember the first squadron. There was so much of eyebrows being raised initially, and not no, that was initial that mindset which is of non-acceptance and judgment that just happens naturally was so much there. But when till today, but today everyone who's out there in that squadron are still my friends. We are still connected, right? They became my best pals. So yeah, so this is how it's a journey that you have to undergo. It's the hard work that you need to put in. It is how what you demonstrate being a professional and a person in that capacity is what matters. So you got to make it matter is what was all that was with me that point in time.
And where did your career take you after that? What are some of the other places you were in? And I presume you kept rising up the rank, getting promoted, so you began to lead other officers and things like that.
Yes, but I really wish, that point in time we had the option of doing the QFI courses. We had the option
Right.
of doing the twins, which never happened. It happened much later because any decision, any policy that comes into vogue takes time, and probably it happened after we had left, a long time after that even. But I did finish my 15 years. I was initially for 10 years and then an extension of 5 years if I, depending on my performance and the ARs, which I was given eventually. So after Leh, I got posted to Jodhpur. And from Jodhpur, then I went back to HT as a staff pilot. So from Hakimpet back to Sarsawa, which was my last
Hmm.
posting.
Okay. You never
So
served in the East, that means.
never in the East. No, no, never in the East. And that was something I really wanted to do. But when I left the Air Force and then I joined commercial flying in the civil, and then I was flying the modern version of Elevate called the H125. It's the same family, but it's a
Airbus,
modern
right. Mm.
Airbus
Mm.
helicopter. Yeah. And when I started flying Airbus, I got the opportunity to go and fly in the East. And then I've flown all over the East. I did that at that point in time. So yes, I could just do things I could not do during the Air Force tenure because I never got an opportunity to get posted. Because there's so many stations, Air Force stations, right? And if you don't, within 15 years, see every 2 years you get posted out, you get maximum how many postings? It's like 6 to 7 postings.
Yeah.
And for me, they just happened up north or they happened down
In
south.
the
Or
right.
so I could never get posted to east. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people who served in the East just fall in love with that part of the country, and
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's
yeah,
really beautiful. Yes, absolutely.
love. Super. So after that, you flew civil. Are you still flying civil? Or have you hung up your overalls now?
Yes, so I quit Air Force and then I joined a company. which was, and I was there as a pilot with them. I was looking after the business development and operations and flying training and all that stuff. And so I flew in the civil, and I was flying for pilgrimage sorties. I was flying Kedarnath and all that stuff,
Vaishno
Badrinath,
Devi and all
Kedarnath,
those.
Vaishno
Yeah.
Devi. I was flying for elections. So it was like NSOP aircraft, right? Wherever
Right, right. Correct. Charter.
was chartered, I would go and fly. So that was there for 5 years, and then I joined. Then I quit flying and joined corporate.
Okay, got it. And when you left the Air Force, how many hours totally flying did you have?
I had about close to 2,000 hours when I left the
Wow.
Air Force. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and another 1,000 hours after that.
After that, okay.
Yeah.
And you do your ALTP and whatnot while you're in service, is it?
Yes, I did my CHPL, not the ATPL.
CHPL.
I did
Okay,
my
got it.
CHPL. Yeah, the commercial helicopter pilot flying. Yeah.
Great. Any concluding thoughts? You took a bold decision when you saw that ad to join the service. And, if you look back on that, any advice you have for young women who look up to you as a role model?
I think it's just that you follow your calling always, right? What you want to do in life. And even if it may come a little late, but whenever you get an opportunity, just it's worth taking all the risks that come in life. In fact, the biggest risk in life is not taking any risk. And anything worth in life that you get is always on the other side of your comfort zone. It always comes with taking risks. It comes with follow your heart's calling. Your why has to be so strong that your what and how automatically would follow that. So never give up, never be scared of challenges, learn to face your fears head on, and always follow what you want to do, what you are passionate about in life. Rest, everything falls into place eventually.
Wonderful. That's great, great stuff to conclude on. I want to thank you for your service, and I want to thank you for taking the time. I'm sure you're very busy, but it's really nice of you to speak to me and speak to the audience of the Blue Skies.
Thank you so much, Ganapati, and it's been a pleasure to be on this podcast, Blue Skies, with you here today. So, want to thank you for giving me this opportunity, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Visual to shoot before visualize. Just need 70, Roger, report IP southeast, connection, for visualize, and field selected.
Well, folks, that's all we have time for this week. Join us again next week. In the meantime, sign up for updates at blueskiespodcast.com. There you'll find links to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also write to us with your comments, questions, suggestions, and feedback from the website or to blueskies@prganapati.com. Subscribe to the podcast on any podcasting platform such as Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even on YouTube. If you like what you heard, share it with your friends, give us a rating in your favorite podcasting app, and write us a review. It will help other people find us. I want to give my thanks to Saurav Chordia for our logo and Prithvik for the music. I want to reiterate that all the views expressed here are personal, and this podcast has not been approved by or reviewed by the Air Force, Ministry of Defense, or any branch of the government. In the meantime, stay safe and Jai Hind.